Okay. So it's
Yeah.
about 10 minutes after 4 now.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
can
I don't know.
start.
Okay, we can start now.
Yes, please. I'm just going to
Okay.
share my screen quickly if that's fine. Um, I'm not sure everyone here has met me, but I think in the early days, I have taken also on the specific introductory conversation. I'll put something in the chat for us as part of the objective of this learning. Let me share my screen quickly. That's okay. Minimize this for a bit. Let's bring this here. Let me know if you can see my screen. And the screen will be good. And I'm going to be sharing this screen. So can you all see my screen? If you can just put some, what's it called? Put some thumbs up, and going to be putting some objectives of the training. Yeah, good. So, yeah. So this is what we would be expecting to do. I'm just going to minimize this for a minute. So hello everyone. I'm just going to share my face quickly. I don't know if some of you have made me or not. But hello everyone. My name is Oladele Soares. I think I've taken you guys on the first initial call that we had at the introductory part. I've been within the security and cloud space for over 7 years now as a senior cloud security consultant. So I look after so many products, not just Microsoft, but a whole lot. So today we're going to be discussing what we call the Microsoft Identity Protection capability, which is the Entra identity protection bit, really. The outcome of what we intend to do today has been shared in the chat. So we're going to be looking at stuff around the identity protection basics. We're also going to be looking at stuff around implementing those basics. We're looking at simulating those basics. We're also going to be looking at stuff like implementing multi-factor authentication and MF registration policies, and also we're going to be looking at stuff around triggering an alert and seeing how that comes to effect. But just before I start blabbing and saying all sorts of technical jargons, my assumption is we are already aware of some of the key components within Microsoft Entra ID identity protection capability. Like we've been exposed to some conversation around multi-factor authentication, conditional access, and all those shenanigans. If you haven't, can you give it, if you have, can you give a thumbs up? If you haven't, can you just give a thumbs down so I can understand the number of what the crowd looks like in terms of the understanding and whatnot. So if you are not aware of the information, give a thumbs down. If you're aware of the information, give a thumbs up. So that allows me to, take it at maybe circle back a little bit quickly and then, stuff. So I'm waiting for you guys to just give thumbs up and thumbs down if you haven't. That would help us really to move faster because the goal of this is not to present any slides. I just want to jump into the demo and then we can see stuff. So I'm not seeing, and please feel free to come off mute, feel free to ask questions and all this nice stuff. I would appreciate that people are following and they kind of understand what we're trying to do. So if you are not new to the topic, give a thumbs up. If you are new to the topic, anything Entra, give a thumbs down, please. So we've got about 3 thumbs up and we've got over 29 people on the call. Okay, we've got 4, I need about 10 people to confirm, so I can confirm that I have the right set of people on the call to to digest the information. Not to say the rest I would not. But I've got 6 now. Okay. Someone said they're going to appreciate overview. Okay, good. As you can see on my screen, so overview in terms of Entra. Entra is basically Microsoft Identity and Access Management component. Technically, it's a cloud-based identity and access management tool by Microsoft. And if you go back in time, we used to have the on-premise Active Directory where you manage users, groups, and computers. The same thing has now been brought into the cloud as something we call software as a service. So basically, rather than having to host all of those infrastructure on premises, you are then required to just pay like a subscription. So all of us here, we have Netflix here. So you remember back in the days, you have to then go and buy the video CD or buy the CD and have it by yourself. And when the CD crashes or something, you have to then maybe replace it, clean it and stuff like that. But now all you need to do is just have a TV and you pay to Netflix and you then subscribe to Netflix. The same component here happens with Entra and other Microsoft services as well that are cloud-based. Technically, you just have to pay subscription for it to use that functionality. And one of those functionalities is Entra. And what does it really do? It manages your users, computers, application, network now, and of course, the security of the identity of the users. So that's an overview of what Entra does. But in terms of Entra is now further broken down to multiple components, and in that component, to be honest with you, you find bulk of the information within the Microsoft what's it called homepage. But just before we proceed, how many of us has access to a Microsoft tenancy, whether through existing labs or whatever? How many of us have the access? Um, how many of us have the access? I would appreciate if you can just give a thumbs up and all of this nice stuff. Yeah. So we obviously we've played around the tenant and we are aware of some of the key information. Well, wonderful. Now, in an Entra environment, this is what you would most likely see. And the good thing about Microsoft, I think I mentioned in my last conversation, is that everything is right in front of you. So your navigation are very, very important. Before we delve down into the core of this conversation, we'll be looking at probably look at stuff like conditional access. You've understood what MFA is. You've understood what identity governance is. You probably understood stuff around MF registration policies, authentication methods, and all those nice stuff, because that would be a major building block of what we're going to be discussing today. So, with the Microsoft tenancy, let's cycle back to the birth of this identity protection. Back in the days when users log in from different environments, for example, when we were predominantly on premises, before you can gain access to the official network of the business, you have to first get into the business, connect to the network, and of course, being able to access files over the network. Then if you're working remotely, the business will say, okay, you know what, you need to install like a VPN on your computer so that you can log in and then access some of the services, the better remote working. Now, threat actors at that point in time were smart enough to understand that we were going through what we call the basic authentication. Okay. And the basic authentication is just username and password. So what that means is that if you can compromise somebody's username and password, automatically can get access to the environment, whether the person is an admin or user. However, with the birth of this cloud conversation and whatnot, there was implementation of or introduction of what we call the multi-factor authentication. But that's not still enough because you are proving you are who you are and you have what you have, which is your multi-factor authentication option, whether your token or your SMS, whatever option you've picked, that still adds some level of risk because threat actors can potentially, find a way to circumvent that option and then try to impersonate some of your two-factor option. A good example, I was listening to something this morning about SIM swapping. SIM swapping, whereby someone is able to swap your number. Let's imagine that your MFA token or MFA pin goes to a number that has been SIM swapped. That means that the threat actor can automatically authenticate on your behalf, right? So the guy was not advising that what's the best way to go, and we was thinking of we go passwordless, we go fish resistant MFA options like your FIDO to security keys and all those nice stuff. But then something must drive that conversation, something must drive that configuration. And what drives that configuration from a risk perspective is this nice the identity protection. Now, one thing I want us to put, I want everyone in the comment section to write this and just be sure that they follow me, that the driving factor for identity protection is the risk. If you could just put the word risk in the chat. It's fine, you can flood the chat. We just put the word risk. The driving factor for this is risk. Just put the risk, yeah. And I'll explain to you. Identity protection is driven by the risky events, risky signing, risky activity, risky location, risky IP address of the user. If you look at the word ID protection, identity protection, the driving factor is basically looking at the risk level of the user. So what that means is that if someone has an elevated risk, what can contribute to the elevated risk? I'm going to show specific information about what can contribute to elevated risk shortly. So let's look at something around the portal. Let's do some digging out or some studying and stuff like that. Before we drive down into this one, this one, I think I have that one here. I'm gonna bring something in the chat here. So a bit of theory here, because I didn't want to present anything at first. So if we look at this information here, it says to us, identity protection service is a service that enables organization to view security posture of any account. Organization can accomplish the following tasks: automate detection and remediation of identified based risk. The second is investigate the risk using data in the portal and export the risk detection to third-party utility for further analysis. So the concept of that mighty feature is the fact that it's quantifying anything around identity-centric risk. That's why I say you guys should comment the word risk, because at the end of the day, if risk is not coming from a login attempt, a bad IP address, a malicious signing attempt, a travel that doesn't make sense, a malware IP linked to the particular address and all this nice stuff, it doesn't really generate the signal. Now, the good thing about identity protection is that the protection is actually built on what we call risk-based conditional access policy. Can we put that into the chat as well? Risk-based conditional access. Just put in chat, risk-based conditional access, like risk-based conditional access, something like this. We would explain this in further details. Yes, risk-based conditional access. And we should also then, now with that risk-based conditional access, we should also understand what something that there's a driving force towards that risk-based condition access. But before we start into that shenanigans, let's talk about what are the specific requirement for it. Number one thing to be able to use this feature within Microsoft services is that you must have the P2, the Entra ID P2 license. That's number one requirement. However, you realize that some instances in Microsoft, you might have just one license and it's going to work. But if you become audited in your organization and you don't have the license, you might be prosecuted because you are going against Microsoft licensing model. So number one thing, you must have the license. That's the number one requirement. Now, all of this risk data is actually aggregated based on multiple learning through Microsoft machine learning and AI capability, because it pulls so much signals from different sources, your location, your IP address, your device, your user signing risk, and all this nice stuff. And then it looks at it and then assign a risk score behind the scene to say, you know what, this is what normal looks like for this user, and this is what abnormal looks like for this user. We're going to demonstrate that as well. So I'm just going to scroll to the bottom. Now, the classification of identity protection when it comes to risk is based on this number that we've got here, the information that we've got here. I'm going to go through it one after the other. Now, configuration is important. Learn how to configure stuff is important, but understanding why you are building some things within a product is very, very important, because that allows you to then have flexibility when it comes to your configuration. Now, the first thing we have here is anonymous IP. If you know you've used a VPN before, can you give a thumbs up? Good. Felix is giving a thumbs up. Felix, because you're giving a thumbs up, can you tell us the reason why you use the VPN? We are getting somewhere. You can just unmute and just tell us the reason why you use the VPN. Don't be shy. It has to be, don't be shy. Okay, we're going somewhere. Well, who else amongst us can just unmute and just tell us why they use the VPN?
Okay, I
Alright,
used
can I say? Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Alright.
It's a
go ahead.
free.
Okay.
Yeah, I
wanted to
sent my
say-
chat, my answer in the chat.
Okay. To access organization resource after outside of organization. Perfect. How many of us have used VPN to access maybe torrent sites or maybe to access specific websites abroad that you know that your normal IP address would not allow? Okay, someone has to access to ID IP address and stuff. Good. Now, because of that, there are a lot of, so there's something called anonymizer or VPNs and stuff, and the whole process of the VPN is just to actually make your IP address private, and so that by the time you turn it to the internet, it's not seen as your location. However, threat actors also do the same. So we have stuff like Tor browser, and I'm sure some of us know Tor browser and stuff like that. And because of this, the anonymous IP address is one of the number one components that we have to look at, because at the end of the day, Entra ID identity protection has the capability to separate what a normal IP address looks like and what anonymous IP address looks like. And the only reason why you want to be anonymous is because, first and foremost, you want to hide your location, right? But by doing so, because you might be doing it for legitimate reason, but threat actors would also want to hide that. Say, for example, your credential is compromised. They want to, because normally every day you come into your office, you log into your computer, you put in your normal username and password, your location, your IP address is marked on your device. Entra understands that this is your regular location. However, let's say tomorrow you log in the same time, then you appear to be coming in from maybe Croatia or Russia or China, not to be to be funny about China being a bad place anytime, just saying for example. So don't quote me. And then the signal to say, look, Felix hasn't really been logging in from this IP address. So that makes it anonymous. And of course, it's going to flag a particular risk level to say, now Felix has now moved from Lagos, Nigeria, and is now logging in from Russia. And logging in from Russia from a completely different IP address that I don't know, but then I would put a risk score to say this is low risk. Now, let's now imagine that Felix, we are cascading down actually. Felix had initially logged in from Lagos, let's say 2 hours before, and he says it's from Lagos, and 3 hours after it's coming from China. You and I know that flight to China is days or even, sorry, it's a couple of hours or even days. So you can't technically travel from Lagos to China within a span of 3 hours. And that is where the bet of atypical travel risk detection comes in. So then the signal, the system now learns the signal that something is fishy. So based on this, you would also assign a risk score to the identity, Let's now imagine that something changes, and then because Microsoft gets sources over time from malicious IP addresses, and they have like a blacklist of malicious IP addresses. Let's imagine that Felix account then now comes in from a malicious linked IP address. That automatically also increases the risk detection and say, no, there's something going on, and then that is when identity protection kicks in. Now, the other components that we look at, stuff like if Felix had never logged in from a let's say from a Linux box before, and we can see a login from a Linux machine, or we can see a login from an unknown machine, maybe whether it's not Android, Mac OS, or Windows. We're seeing it from a very weird machine, then we're going to flag it as well. Another thing is, maybe, for example, as part of Microsoft analysis, they realize that your credentials has been leaked in the dark web. Of course, that would also add to your level of risk and a whole lot of things like that. So if you look at this list, these are the major deciding factor of risk detection that is circled around the Microsoft identity protection tool to detect identity-centric risk that's assigned to a user sign-in. If you are lost, give me a thumbs down. If you are following, give me a thumbs up. If I'm too fast, give it a thumbs down. If you're lost, give it a thumbs down. If you're not happy about what you're learning, give it a thumbs down. But if you are following, give it a thumbs up. Are we scared? Guys, do you want me to keep quiet? So I've just got Emmanuel only, and I've got over 40 people on the call. So I want to assume that the rest of the people are not following. Okay, somebody says a bit too technical. Okay. I did ask the question from the beginning if you had followed the previous classes, because it's a foundation. Victoria says she's following, but Ibrahim, you can come back to, we can take a little bit non-technical. If you're following, good. Now, understanding, like I said to you, let's just take it a bit backward. The most important component for identity protection is based on the risk factor. And risk can be based on multiple things, whether from sign-in, from location, from IP address, from even risky activity that the user performs. You don't have to put all these things in your head because it's just on the Microsoft documentation. And to be fair, there's nothing that you can stick into your head and that's compulsory. You can always refer back to the material. Now, to configure these things basically requires specific set of rules. Now, within these roles, we have what we call the security administrator. Basically, what you can do, you can access the entire security admin, you can access the entire identity protection stack. Security operator, you can dismiss, you can view protection reports, you can review the screen, you can dismiss user risk, you can confirm user is compromised. You can also, you can configure or change the policy. You can do a lot of things. Security radar, you can only read and all this nice stuff. We've spoken about the license requirement is identity P2 license that you need to, be able to get all of these things done. Now, let's go into Entra to look at what it feels like. Now, this is the dashboard of what identity protection looks like. On the dashboard side, you can see multiple entries. So what I mean by multiple entries, you can see stuff around, the number of attacks that have been blocked over a period of time, the number of users that have been protected over a period of time, the mean time for remediation, which is the time it takes for an account to be remediated. And of course, if you have like an AI agent that you consume and all of this nice stuff. But there's one thing about Entra identity protection I've not mentioned. The major goal of this product is to ensure that apart from us looking at this risk-based condition of the user, we want to also ensure that there's what we call self-remediation. Can you put self-remediation in the chat, please? Self-remediation. Are you guys following? If you're not following, you can give a thumbs down. If you don't understand what I'm saying, you can give a thumbs down. But self-remediation, yeah. So self-remediation technically means that you want it to be as autonomous as possible. You don't want your admin coming in to make changes. And it's really good because it's learning based on signals. So the self-remediation part allows the system to look at your sign-in logs holistically, and then based on that, it makes a judgment. Is it a true risky event? Yes, it is. What's the risk level? Is really high. What's the action? Maybe to block the user, require multi-factor authentication, all this nice stuff. But all of these things requires a configuration. Somebody has to configure these things for us, and before we get into what we call the risk policy, impact analysis, and all those nice stuff, let's look at what allows us to configure these things. And if you remember, I said in the beginning that we should comment the risk-based conditional access. I want to tell you that what would drive that remediation and risk-based quantification is the conditional access policy that you've built. Now, do you have a question? Someone is mute. Someone just went off mute. On mute. Okay. So what drives that is the conditional access policy. Now in the conditional access policy, if are you new to this topic, the conditional access topic, or because I looked at the what's it called? Look at the output. I believe you've been taught what conditional access policies are. I say, if you're not asking questions, can you unmute yourself, please? Okay, thank you very much. I've got two people's hands up, Ibrahim and are you asking a question or is your hands just up? Okay, thank you. Now, let's take a step backward. The driving factor for identity protection is a conditional access policy that looks at the user risk. Now, what the two components of the identity protection is looking at two things: the user risk and the signing risk. If we circle back to this documentation, you realize that if you randomly pick up things, you are picking things, either the user is signing in or the user is acting on something. I can play that for you. So this is more likely signing risk, because you can see it talks about signing and all of those nice stuff. So signing from a malicious IP address, signing from an atypical location, signing from a malware link IP, signing with properties we've not seen before. Other actions that attributes to user risk could be things like the user's credential is leaked to the dark web, the user is carrying out a multiple password spray attempt whereby you are trying manual brute force to break through the system, or even looking at Microsoft intelligence as well, or maybe stuff like suspicious forwarding in the user's mailbox. So the two driving factor for identity protection is either a user risk policy or a sign risk policy. Can we put that in the chat quickly? The two driving factor, even if you're not picking anything, the two driving factor for identity protection is a user risk policy or a sign risk policy. And I'm going to explain that in details. But can we put that in the chat? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So those are the two driving factors. Now, we're going to the signing risk. User risk. Let's if you are not speaking, can you mute yourself, please? I appreciate that. It's gonna. Thank you. Now, let's look at things. Now, before we move forward, we will try to explain the two components. Now, and I'll explain this in very late time. Now, user risk. Don't know who that person is. Can we mute? Can we mute that person speaking, please, if that's okay?
What is so?
I can. Urekalu, can you mute yourself, please, if that's okay? Can you mute yourself, please?
Down on a village.
Urekalu, can you mute yourself, if that's okay? Can you mute yourself, please? That's okay. Thank you. Good. Now, you can see in the definition of what the user risk policy is, it says organization should select user remediation when the user's risk is high. But before then, let's look at what they that's not what I'm looking for. Yeah, what are the risk detection? This one. Let's move down to the risk level. Yeah, this one. Now, so a good example would be this one. That's what I'm looking for. User risk. The concept was the risk detection. There's this part of the document that says the beads. Just bear me. Yeah. So signing risk is the first one that we're going to be looking at, just to explain those two things I've mentioned. So you can see signing risk detection. Now, this detection basically follows through things like activity from anonymous IP addresses, additional risk detected from signings, anonymous token. It could also come from an admin confirming that user is compromised, IP address as well, atypical travel, impossible travel, like I mentioned, when you go from Lagos to China in 2 hours, malicious IP addresses, and so on and so forth. But with with user risk detection, it can be very similar, but it has to do with like a user activity. So say, for example, somebody signing from somewhere and then they begin to access files that they don't usually access, or they begin to delete files that they don't usually delete, or things like advisory individual attack where someone is trying to replay your token, like a token theft or stuff around. If you're not speaking, can you unmute yourself, please, if that's okay? It's a bit too it's quite it's not nice for the rest of people on the call. Thank you. William, can you mute yourself, please, if that's okay? Thank you very much. Now, so can you mute yourself, please, William, if that's okay? Thank you. So I wanted to understand the signing risk, which is the two components in here, which is basically looking at the signing component based on the risk factor from different location, from different IP address, from anonymous IP address, from impossible travels, from things like multiple field login attempts. Those are like signing risk. But the user risk part, we look at the signing risk and other risky activity, for example, token theft. Somebody stole your token, maybe through what we call advisory individual attack, or maybe someone is trying to someone logged in from a known malicious IP address, and then they start encrypting files and all of this nice stuff. And based on that, we then have to build policies to address such level of risk. Don't forget, I've said 3 things here, or 4 things here. The driving factor for identity protection is risk. Depending on the risk level, we are going to be looking at 2 components, the user risk and the signing risk. The signing risk from the word signing is based on every risk that comes around with signings. User risk looks for everything that comes with both the signing and also the activity of the user that is deemed to be risky. And it could be things around malicious activity like multiple encryption of files coming from a bad IP address, all those nice stuff. So those are driving force. Now, before you start building any condition access policy that will require multi-factor authentication, there is one thing you need to put in mind, and that is the MFA registration policy. What that means is that we are going to build some policies together. I'm going to show you some policies that are built, but before a policy is built, you must ensure that your users are able to authenticate and perform actions that helps the system to self-remediate the risk. I told you guys to put remediation in the chat. And the whole idea is that you want to give users the ability to remediate their risk, whether it is confirmed by an admin or confirmed by the AF or Microsoft. They must be able to remediate the risk. And the way they can remediate the risk is by going through multiple layers of authentication through multi-factor authentication, or maybe password reset, or even being blocked, whatever the challenge is. But if you want users to be able to mitigate the risk, then you must provide them options that allows them to register 2-factor options, which is basically your MF registration policy. Now, the whole idea is that if you can picture it in your head, identity protection focuses on risk level, whether from signing or user risk. Based on that, we are going to build a policy. But before we build a policy, we would have to ensure that users are registered with MFA options to support the policy. And based on that, we can then build a policy. Does that make sense, guys? If you followed me enough, does that make sense to you? Does that make sense, guys? If you are lost, let me know. Good. Now that we understand the fundamentals of identity protection, let's now dive into some configuration. Now, I'm going to go into what we call the condition access. Because I've already these are toggles that you just have to toggle and then exclude your break glass account where necessary. I'm sure you guys have, I don't know if in previous classes you've discussed stuff around break glass account, but if not, break glass account is just like an emergency account. Think about if you go to every organization that requires that's a big organization, they'll have like a back door. That back door is in the case of emergency, you want to quickly escape the building. The same thing in any product, you must have like a break glass account. You have to ensure that that account is solely used for backdoor access. So hence the reason why you have to exclude that. But in terms of configuration, as part of I don't if so I would like to be I want to be sure, have we been exposed to conditional access policy? If yes, give a thumbs up. If not, give a thumbs down. Or I believe we should have been before we get to this topic because it's a prerequisite for this conversation. Have you been exposed to the conditional access, Microsoft conditional access? Hello, are you there, guys?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. The fact that we exposed to conditional access, that means we know where we're going. Now, if we were to build a policy to look after the Microsoft identity protection, the configuration is based on the risk space. Before then, usually we used to build the policy here where you just basically just assign the policy, exclude your break glass account, and then look at the risk level. Now, Microsoft is recommending that we should migrate to conditional access by 2026 because they are going to be retiring this configuration. So because of that, I will not teach you here because it's of no relevance if you are going for your interviews. It would not make sense if you are describing it here. So we're going to be moving to conditional access. Now, for us to build a risk-based conditional access policy based on the sign-in risk and the user risk, like you mentioned, we would first have to, we can either build it from the Microsoft templates, which is basically if you click on the plus sign here. The template, if you go down to emerging threat, I think not that one, maybe go down to zero trust. You would see that Microsoft has specific policy for, if you look at it, risky signing and high risk user. That's on the Microsoft template. If I click on learn more, it's going to go to the documentation and then you can see it's taking us back to the Microsoft identity protection. You can see here. So basically Microsoft already gives you like a template that you can follow as best practice, so which is good. Now, let's view first and foremost the risky sign-ins. Now, this is basic. This is the policy name, which is fine. The recommendation is to assign it to all your users in the organization, and then you exclude your break glass account. Assign that policy to all your application, and then look at two things: the risk level, which is basically under the sign-in risk. Don't forget the two determining factors of identity protection is your user risk and your sign-in risk. If the user risk is high or medium, what do you want to do? You want to require them to go through multi-factor authentication. The reason for this is that you want them to re-verify, re-challenge for multi-factor authentication. The reason for that is that if we cycle back the initial zero trust conversation, which is verify explicitly, least privilege, and continuous evaluation. If you go back to verify explicitly, you have to verify that you are who you are every time. So based on this risk factor, which is the sign-in risk, whether it is high or low, or whether it is high or medium. We are going to ask you to confirm multi-factor authentication again, because we don't know if you have been compromised. We don't know if somebody has stolen your MFA token. We don't know that. But because of the fact that our signal tells us that the sign-in risk level has increased from medium to high, you then have to go through multi-factor authentication. And as such, you have to then ensure that we clear your existing session, because by default, your session is active for 8 hours after using your what we call the primary refresh token. Because every now and then, once you authenticate, your device is assigned a token. It's like when you go to a concert, they'll give you like a stamp, right? And that stamp, you just scan your stamp and you get into the event. But if we suspect that your stamp is damaged, we would ask you to go and get another stamp. So that stamp is the token. So we would refer that you have to go to a refresh, because we've seen people trying to share stamps amongst themselves so that you can bring in multiple people. The same thing for threat actors. So the whole concept of the sign-in risk, which is the first part, is that we are looking at the risk level to be high or medium. Depending on that, you're going to ask you to sign in again and then provide multi-factor authentication. The second one, which is looking at the user risk, is this one. I'm going to explain in details. Am I looking at the initial page that we were on? What can you see that is different? There are two different things here. What can you see that is different? Anybody that gets this thing, I'm going to give the person 20,000 naira. There are two unique differences that is on the first policy, which is the sign-in, which is whoever is in the chat, if facilitator, please, if you can take the bank details of the person, just take notes. This is a 2 minutes exercise. Anybody that gets this, I'm going to give the person 20,000 naira. The sign-in risk and the user risk, which is these two. There are two differences.
One of it is that the risk level here is high, and the second is that they require password change.
Good. What's your name? Sorry.
Emmanuel.
Do you want to put your? I mean, you can. You can. Let's just take that down. So Emmanuel just wanted 20,000 naira. So
yeah, hello. I typed in the risk level that was high.
Yeah, but there are two things in there.
Okay. Fine. Fine.
So there are two things. So if you look at it, the risk level is high. So Emmanuel, one last question for you. What was the driving factor for the risk level to be high? You want the money though, it's fine. You want the money.
Because it has to do with the user itself.
God bless you. So it's a user risk-driven policy. So because of that, we are looking at the risk level based on user that is high. And the driving factor for this is basically around activity, not sign-in. Do you get what I mean? And because of the fact that it's now an activity-led approach, that means that for us to signal this, that means there's something really going on. And we have to go through zero trust again. We would require a password change quickly, because if it was with a threat actor, if once we reset the password and then we require multi-factor authentication, that automatically does what we call attack queue chain. It breaks the attack queue chain. It breaks it straight up, because at that point in time, the attacker can no longer get access to the environment. So the whole idea for Microsoft security approaches zero trust and defense in depth, continuous evaluation every now and then. Any question on that before we build anything? Any question, folks? If you're not speaking, please can you unmute yourself? If you're not speaking, please can you unmute yourself, please? William, please can you unmute yourself? William, please, can you unmute yourself? You interfere with the call. You go. I have another gift for another person. But then if you pay attention, we will go through. We will do that. Anyways, I've built this policy. So as a rule of thumb, I used to advise that when you're building a policy, have like a naming convention and have a meaning around it, because that allows you to, it allows you to structure things. So I have what we call the policy series that I've built in my test environment anyway. So I will look at a quick scenario of what we just looked at before. So we're looking at all users, we're excluding our break glass account, which is this account. We are applying to all cloud applications. The risk level, like I mentioned to us, is if the risk level is, what did I configure here? So this is signing risk. So if the signing risk is medium to high, what do I want to do? I want to, require multi-factor authentication, and most likely I want to then set it up to, that is, I want it to then enforce signing frequency to every time. I'm going to save that. And we will try to experiment the first one. So who's going to volunteer to be the test? So before then, let's look at the signing risk. Now, we're also looking at all users, exclude the breakless account, all cloud apps, but the condition in this case is user risk. I would probably want to make this high, because at the end of the day, this would also create a lot of alert fatigue for the SOC guys. So I'm just going to leave that one. The grant, we want it to require multi-factor authentication and require change. You want to say something?
Yes.
Yeah, go for
Sorry
it.
to interrupt you. I have a quick question.
Go for it.
In your account, the break glass account, is that your global admin, or did you create a unique account to be the break glass account, or can you just, in a typical situation, leave that is like the account, the first account owner, the global administrator, as the break glass account? What do you recommend?
The best approach is that a break glass account should be a global admin standard, but it should not be an account that is used by anybody. In fact, there is strategy to build a break glass account, because you have to ensure that the password contains a particular chain. You have to store it either in the vault, and if you're going to be storing it, if you don't have a vault, you have to share it into 3 places. You give 2 to maybe the IT director, a couple of details to another person, maybe the chief of staff, and and the last person maybe to the CEO or whatever. Then even if you're going through things like using fish-proof MFA, like a FIDO2 security key, you would have to keep that security key somewhere that you would have to go through an approval process before it's being used. The whole idea is that it's for emergency, really not for usage. So don't use your user account as a breakless account. That's one. The second one is that if you're going to be giving people global administrator roles, ensure it is PIM, because if you are following the concept of zero trust, we're looking at verify explicitly least privilege. So use PIM as a methodology to ensure that you're implementing that just in time and just enough access. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. But if, for example, like the name implied, break glass account, right? So you are using it in a case of serious emergency. They won't thereby creating all these bureaucratic steps impede the need for a break glass account in the case of urgent remediation of a problem.
You don't need a break glass account to remediate a problem. You need it as a backdoor. So if you are remediating a problem, you have other account that you can PIM to and remedy the problem. The only time you would need a break glass account is for emergency, like if you lock yourself out. You don't use it for data, like you don't use it for anything other than that. Because the whole idea, think about it, the only time you use an emergency exit is when there's an emergency to exit, to come into the building or go out of the building. Does that answer your question? So back to the name, I used to advise that people don't use break glass because it's very obvious for threat actors. You might want to give it a different name, and you need to have two with different authentication methods. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, yes, it does. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Okay, folks. Let's do a demonstration. I have a test account. So the scenario is we have a test account that we're going to be testing with. Let's find it. I'm going to reset the password quickly. Test. So test guy, I don't know if I remember the password for this. Let's see how much time we've got. We've just spent an hour, so we've got an hour to test. And we're going to look at some funny scenarios. Let's do something. So are you the one that won the money, yeah? Okay, I'm just gonna get your bank details and then have that sent over. I still have a price for one more person, and we're gonna call it a day. And this is just to encourage people to just listen, not to just monetize the situation, let's you're not trying to monetize it, we're just encouraging people to follow up and try to, yeah, it might be complex information, like I said, but let's just find a new, let me create a new one. Let my bit wording do it for me. So how many of us have got access to, I think I've got a Tor browser here. So we would simulate something. So we will simulate an attacker's motive. And let's go on Tor. I know some of us don't know Tor. People that like to get that like to download malicious stuff online. You're gonna get to Tor. So let's try to connect to Tor. Oh, come on, cancel. Always connect automatically. Let's try to connect to Tor. And we will see the actions in Tor. So we're gonna go to office.com. Hold on a minute. Let me anonymize first. Office admin. I think doesn't it? Office.com. Okay. We will just want to test. We want to test some things here. No, so hypothetically, let's imagine that we're a threat actor, right? And then we want to break into the account, but we have our identity protection at the gate doing that bit of work for us. Let me log in as a normal user on a different browser. So we could probably go to incognito. We go to portal.office.com. We do this guy. I think it's this guy, isn't it? This guy. What's the account details? Show password. This guy, I think that was Kize. I remember this name when I was this guy. On Microsoft.com. We put a new password. Voila. We have logged in, right? Easy peasy. And we've got some stuff that we need to read to be able to behave ourselves and not do the things that we need to do. Like we're not do things that are bad, and these are like what's it called, AUP. We accept that. Now, hypothetically, that text guy is a guy that works in. Oh, he needs to set up MFA. Come on. My goodness. Okay, let's go MFA. Yeah, I'm just gonna put the ping in there. I'm gonna put the number 454432. And yeah, he's logged into his account on a Monday morning. Looks good. He's logged on a Monday morning to his account. Everything looks good. No issue. You can access his you can access his Office 365 application. You can access his emails. You know, you can do stuff, you can check his mail, you can, oh, what did I do to this thing? I think I was doing some certificates on that like that. I don't know, let's see. I don't know why I did this. Anyways, I don't want this to be me 1 minute. Computer is messing up. Okay, let's move this aside. So on this guy, the threat actor has then got, so let's imagine that this guy is able to authenticate into his account, right? And can go ahead and do the things they want to do. No big deal. And then on this node is able to, I don't know what's wrong. And on this side, this guy, the threat actor, and this guy as in double ski. Abami, you've got your hands up.
Your screen is stuck.
It's too small.
No, like it's not moving.
Oh, okay. Don't know what's going on there. What can you say, please? My computer is hanged. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Select a certificate.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Can you see now? Can you see?
Yes. Yes.
Is it clear now? Yeah. Okay. So let's imagine. What's my incognito browser? It's a bit weird. I have so much. So let's now imagine on DuckDuckDuck, the threat actor is trying multiple bad passwords. They're trying, so you can see. Let's now go and see. You can see what just happened now, yeah? Can you see the screen? Right?
No.
Your screen is
No.
visible.
Yeah,
No.
it seems like you're not sharing any longer.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, guys. My bad. I'm so sorry. Let's share the entire screen again. Sorry, guys. Sorry. So sorry. Apologies. So you can see. Can you see now?
Yes.
So let's
Visible.
try again. So I'm signing
Yes,
in.
it's showing now.
I'm on my what's it called? On my malicious browser. I can see account is temporarily locked out, blah 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 blah. I still kept on trying my bad password. I still kept on trying. I still kept on trying. I still kept on trying. I'm trying. I'm just putting rubbish in there. I'm trying. You know, I then changed my anonymizer. I said, let me move to a different location. Let's move to let's see again. Let's move. So let's see, we know that they've gotten us. So let's open Tor again. And then we go to portal.update.com.
Sorry, please. I don't know if it's just me or it's just plain here. I can't see anything.
Oh, sorry. I'm
Yeah,
just gonna.
it's her network. Things are clear here.
Same with me
And
here.
you've
I
stopped
can't see
sharing
anything.
as well.
It's been so for a long time. I don't know whether it's for network or so.
Yeah, I can't see the screen again. So
Again, can you guys see?
okay, yeah, we can.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it has come up.
this guy, that was the web name, isn't it? Microsoft.com,
Thank you.
and then for some apparent reason, we are not trying to log in properly. So imagine the threat actor trying to brute force your account, and then I put in the actual password, so you can see. You can see this, right? It seems to have
Yes.
usual about the signing.
Yes.
For example, you might be this
I'm
and
good.
that. Now, let's now go down into our Microsoft portal and let's see what we've got. So you can either check from Defender, so security.microsoft.com, or you can also see the information from here. So let's go into the identity protection stack, where it's going to show us some things about the user risk. Sometimes it might take some time, sometimes it's going to come as quickly as possible. Let's refresh. User sign-in risk. Nothing is popped up now. Let's have a look. It might come from, let's see, from Defender if you have anything Defender. So let's go to incidents. These. Let's see if we've got something. Yep, so we can see something is happening behind the scene. Let's refresh this. Let's look at risk detection. So, boys and girls, gentlemen, men and women, as you can see, there is a risk detection here, right? You can see on this time, I don't know what time is it in Lagos, but I'm not based in Lagos. So on this time, 14 past 4, 12th to 20th of December, we could see an alert from Identity Protection saying that there's a risk level medium. The details of the risk is telling us that there is an authentication access using a proxy or using a valid account detected offline. The source is coming from identity protection. The detection is real time. The activity is a signing event, and this is all of the information. Right? That is on the medium risk level, right? And then we can see on the other bits, you can see that the risk level, the risk type is malicious IP address because it's Tor, and we can see identity protection kicked in, and then it gives us some information about the client, the location. So we're from this IP address, IPv6. Our location is basically somewhere different and stuff like that, And then we can also see medium risk, but that is not enough because what we are looking at is basically the risky signing. This is basically the risky signing event. So in the report, you can see a whole lot more information in terms of how the risk happened, where is the person coming from, and then you can see it's being flagged. This guy is at risk, right? And because of that, the security team would get an alert. And if we look at this beautiful dashboard in here, you can see that there is an attack story. suspicious activity, right? So if you go into this attack story, we can then look at what happened on the event, and it tells us activity policy, multiple failed logon attempts on an application. And we can even drill down to see what it is that have met those lockdown, the failed logon attempt that has happened to trigger this alert. But not to digress a little bit, let's go back into the identification dashboard. So we can see all of this information about the user in terms of the risk level based on the policy we've configured. Now, we can allow it to self-remediate by, so let's say, for example, someone would have to come in as an administrator to look at what is the issue, like what's happening. If we've seen this alert and this user is at risk, we can look at the user sign-in event, we can look at the basic information, who's the user, or what IP address are they coming from, what device are they using, we are coming from Firefox, what's the risk info. It's basically malicious IP address and a anonymous IP address. These are the two risk. What are the MFA registration details? We can see what's the conditional access policy that has been applied, none for now, and then of course that one. If I'm to investigate this, you're looking at this again, you're looking at the information and stuff like that. It's coming from macOS. The risk level is looking at the anonymous IP address, like I mentioned. Now, to drill down into this further, you can then go into the user itself. You can see that the user has been flagged as user at risk, right? And then if you look at the sign-in logs for the user, you can see more information about what's going on. So you can see the person is coming from this malicious IP. Now, here's a beautiful thing. Yep. I am currently based in London, so I logged in from London as at 10 past 4, and then someone from whatever this is trying to log in. Even if I've got like a fighter jet, or I've got like some witchcraft abilities, I can't might move from this point to another. So that's the number one suspicious attempt that allows you to understand that this person is compromised. Now, if you go into the further details, you could see that on the conditional access additional information, it said user needs to perform multi-factor authentication. There could be multiple things requiring multi-factor authentication, which could be conditional access, PISA enforcement, and all this nice stuff. If I click on conditional access, you can see I failed this policy because of the attempt that I was doing based on the sign-in risk that we've identified here. 1 and 2. And if you read through, see this risk detection type indicates signing in from an anonymous IP address, for example, Tor browser, anonymous VPNs. These IP addresses are typically used by actors who want to hide their sign-in information. And then if you go back to malicious IP, this detection indicates signing from a malicious IP address, an IP address that is considered malicious based on high failure rates because of the invalid credential received from the IP address or other reputation source. In some instances, this detection triggers on previous malicious activity and the connection is offline. Before I say a lot of things, I see a lot of people's hands up. Is that for question or is that for first and foremost, is that for question or is that for something else? I've got sorry if I pronounce your name wrongly, it's not intentional. Ubiwe and Abayomi. of course, have you guys got questions, or is that just okay, cool. Before I step further, do we have any question whatsoever? If you are following, or if you've understood what we've just demonstrated, give a thumbs up. If you are lost, give a thumbs down. If you want any clarification over anything, okay. I appreciate the fact that people are following. So let's now see where the self-remediation comes in. As an admin, I realize that this user is at risk. The risk level is high, all this nice stuff. And then come down in here and then confirm the user is compromised. Now, this confirms to Entra ID that the selected sign-in was unauthorized, which in this case, the guy coming in from our Itoje environment is the threat actor. We'll call him, let's call him Zombie X. So Zombie X is the bad guy. He got this guy's username and password and is trying to brute force the account. So we found out that with my wonderful colleague on the call, which is at Biomi Pons and Emmanuel Olu and Victoria Adesh CG, we found out that, because of the security guys that we've got here, fantastic people, we then confirmed that it's compromised with the mark as compromised. Now, let's now go and look at the initial signing event that this gentleman, this guy had before. Let's see what happens. So, where is that? Is that this one? Yes, this one, isn't it? I'm just gonna cancel out this. Always a lot. I don't know why I did to this certificate thing really, but yeah. I'm just gonna leave that aside. So let's now click on verify. This is where it triggers MFA, and like I don't want MFA, I can't do it. I'm just gonna cancel out this, and then I open a separate browser. Let's open a separate browser. Okay, and let's go portal.office.com. Okay, portal.office.com. Come on. Oh. And then let's sign in as this guy at in the Microsoft.com, and then we put a regular password that we created. No big deal, right? Let's see what happens. Can you see? Boys and girls, men and women, uncles and aunties, can we see? Who can?
Yeah, sure we can.
So this is the price. This is where the next price is going for. Anyone that gets this is going to get 10,000 naira. And was it Emmanuel that got it before? Whoever got it before cannot,
Yes,
unfortunately. What do you think is the driving factor for this verification again?
I think it's the sign-in rigs.
Yes, you're right, but there's something I'm looking for. You're right, but there's another thing I'm looking for.
The risk level is higher.
That was the detection component. That was what detected it. So yeah, you're at risk. To help you and only you get back into your test account, we need to verify your identity.
I think it's based on conditional access.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you very much. That's it. So it's asking us to verify who you are, we are who you are. So I'm just going to verify using my authenticator app, which I've got here. 18. And then you can see what's going on here. So what's so lastly, the last person is going to get 10,000, not you, Victoria. What is the driving factor for this password change?
SSPR.
No, that's not part of this conversation, but in this particular scenario.
The account was compromised by your previous password, so and the security team did signify that the account was compromised.
Yes,
So in order for you to get back into your account, you have to create an entirely new password using your second or multi-factor authentication.
And then change your password. Don't forget that the condition we had in the conditional access, yes. So were you the one that won the first 20K?
No, that was not me.
Okay, good then. So we have Victoria. Just gonna put Emmanuel was the guy, isn't it?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you could just I don't know, let me see if I can take now. Like I said, this is not to monetize anything, it's just to encourage people for paying attention. So we're gonna be pasting the old password. I'm just gonna be creating a new password. And new password. It doesn't match. Stupid me. Pardon my French. Okay. Voila. And then it's signing, and that is it. So that automatically goes through the conversation we have. Hold on, let me close this for a minute. Maybe not this. What do I have in here? Just be me 1 minute. So that then gives us that then goes back to the conversation that we have around the risk-based conditional access. And we would see the way inside. So from what we just learned rather, do we have any question or confusion in any capacity?
Well, yes, I have a question, please. Please, I would like you, not really like to go through the clickings or clicks. I would like you to like use words of mouth to run through from where we noticed that there was a sign-in risk, to the very point where we had to change, the password and all that.
Okay, I'll use a very simple analogy, a very simple use case. So, I'll use a use case of concert. I know a lot of us like to go to concert, the video with kid and the likes. Yeah. Let's imagine that. What's your name again? What's your name? Sorry.
Okay, my name is Patrick.
Okay, Patrick. So let's imagine that Patrick, you bought a ticket of 5,000 naira to go to a concert, right?
Yeah.
And then you go into the concert. The concert is just for one space per person, okay?
Yeah.
And then they give you your tickets, right?
Yes.
You got to your seat, you sat down. Then, for example, you went to the bathroom, right?
Yeah.
Let's now imagine another person called Patricia
Okay.
comes in. So Patricia was maybe able to duplicate your banner. So your
Okay.
wristband in this case is like your password, right?
Yeah. Yes.
But before you can get into the concert, you have to scan your wristband, right? So
Yeah.
Patricia was trying to scan to deceive the system. The system in this case is the identity protection to allow Patricia to take the space of Patrick. So
Yes.
let's say the IT team or the security team, which are the physical security, they'll say that after 4 field scan, you will automatically be blocked or be
Blocked.
directed through a channel that you have to scan. You have to put your name, your ID, and all of those, your address that you put at the beginning of registration for the concert. And if any of
Okay.
those information does not resonate with what we have existing, automatically you are not the right, you are not the person. So because Patricia is coming with a dubious mind,
Yeah.
the gate blocked her because don't forget the wristband, which is your password and your multi-factor,
Yeah.
did not
Okay.
allow Patricia to pass through, right?
Yes.
So because of the fact that at this point you already stood up from your seat, we are not even sure you are who you are. We will then ask you, Patrick, you have to go through. We know your password. We know you've got your multi-factor authentication. But Patrick, you have
Yeah.
to go. We've noticed that someone is trying to impersonate you or trying to attempt to be like you or trying to brute force your account, whatever is it. We now say,
Yes.
no, Patrick, you should try to go through the right tunnel again. But in this situation, you would have to provide additional information, which means that the number I gave to you, address you gave to us before, that we only know as the security guy, you have to give it to us again. The date of birth I give to us, example, I'm just giving an example, like the token you provided to us, we have to give us again.
Yes.
So you go through that process, and then you give us the right token and right information, and then we then confirm that it is you. We then allow
Yeah.
passage. Does that make sense?
Yes. And at that same point, you'll be asked to like change the password
Exactly. At
in
that
order
simple,
to for
we change your
sure.
wristband
Yeah.
and give you a wristband.
Okay. So based on this, okay, we haven't done anything about remediation now, right?
So the
We are
remediation,
still
the
yes.
remediation is where we confirm that the person is compromised. The system can either confirm it or the admin can confirm it.
Okay. So remediation is just simply confirmation that the system is
Remediation
compromised.
like saying that, oh, this person, we've confirmed this person has gone through the process of changing their password, which is we change your wristband, we gave you a different passage, which is a password to then go back to your seat. So your seat is like your office traces of account and stuff like that.
Yeah, sorry, I'm being inquisitive because at the start of this class, you said something that remediation ought to be automated. So is it like you did this all these things now manually, or I would like to really know how it can be automated so that I can pick
The
that.
driving factor, when I say remediation, the driving factor is based on the condition you set. When I say it's automated, it's that you must mark the condition, you must reset a password and go through MFA together before we allow you. So the remediation is getting back into your seat. So that process that you went through, that we took you through, we gave you a new wristband, all of those bits, is that confirmation of the remediation. That is where it has to be self-remediated, because if it wasn't self-remediated, we have to then, reset the password for you. We have to send it to you. So think about the reset of the password, like we also been creating the wristband again, sending it to your address. It's going to be very difficult. We can't do that for everybody. So rather than that, we just take you through the tunnel, for example, and then you walk through the tunnel, you do these things yourself, and that is where the self-remediation happens from. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. So to me, just see whether this recap is correct. When this is noticed that an unknown actor is trying to sign in, through an unknown source, the admin can trigger the remediation for the owner of the account to follow the due processes and still get back to the account. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's just the layman. That's just the lay. See, don't forget the technical jargons. Understand the concept, and I think you understood the concepts.
Okay. Thank you.
AGK, do you have a question, or is that just you put your hands up?
I do have a question. So in a scenario where you're dealing with, let's say a high executive. Now let's think of a very security conscious company or a company that deals in very secure trade secrets, right? And obviously you're not dealing with just any riffraff or script kiddie. You're dealing with, let's say, an APT nation state, right? Who is trying to will like an exec or something. In a situation where these certain accounts have a lot more privileges than most people, let's say even in the IT team, what conditional access policies can you use to create a kind of segmentation, since we're doing the zero trust policy, to separate them in case an account is taken over? Because when you're dealing with people like APTs, they don't just do like brute forcing attacks. They take their time to, like, let's say, get your email, compromise your emails. From there they can compromise your account, then still make it seem like you're the one in the account, so there's no ethical travel. Possibly still use an IP that is still within the region because they've taken their time to do their research. How then do you now create a bit of segmentation between those very sensitive accounts and your entire tenant to be compromised in case it's being targeted for, in a situation where you're dealing with highly sensitive secrets or like company secrets or IP?
Well, first and foremost, I know, and this person sounds like they already work in the space, and for the benefit of some of us on the call, that's a very good question. I appreciate that. I'll try to break the question down before I answer. So what he's trying to say is that in a highly regulated environment that has very, 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 very private and top level information that requires high security investment or configuration, how do you create that segmentation? Now, the short answer to that is that you would have to have multiple policy based on your what we call the defense in-depth strategy. Now, what I mean by that is that if you cycle back to the fundamentals of conditional access, conditional access is based on, I think, 5 different signals: identity, endpoint, data, network, and I can't remember the last one. But based on these signals, these are where the channel of communication comes in, and based on that, we have to meet some of these conditions to be able to allow access to specific resources. So back to your question in terms of segmentation, if you pick an endpoint, for example, you might want to segment based on endpoint to say you can only access specific sensitive set of network resources like SharePoint and OneDrive and Exchange if you are coming in from a managed device or a device with a very low risk score. That's one. Another use case could be if you are trying to authenticate as an administrator, you must be coming in from a fish-proof MFA, which is basically you either using stuff like Windows Hello, passkeys, or you're using dedicated machines that can only authenticate you to access specific resources. You could also limit to based on location. So to say that if you are trying to be a global admin or wherever, you must be authenticating from what we call named location. So in my organization, I build what we call location segmentation to say that if you're accessing some critical cloud resources, you cannot access it from just a normal IP address. We would expect to come through our own dedicated IP address. So you have to be in the business to be able to access some third-party application. While other apps we can access it anywhere. On the flip side as well, we might say, you know what, we want to cut the long story short. We don't want unmanaged devices. Anybody accessing our resources must be authenticating from our device. However, we've seen stuff around threat actors doing what we call like token replay, like advanced criminal attack, where they steal your token and all this nice stuff. We can enforce stuff like token. You can enforce stuff like what's that thing called? Just gonna show you. I forgot what it's called now. I've built it in testing memory for. Within the policy, we can enforce stuff like it's gonna be under action. It's not gonna be. You can enforce stuff like not this one, condition, even bring condition. We can enforce stuff like authentication flow. So we can say we don't want you to be able to transfer your device code to another device. This is going to be for maybe people that are developers, for example, when you want to do like a code flow transfer, where you don't technically have to, you would use that, you would force the users to authenticate and then give them what we call the device code flow. That device code flow, they just put into a browser and then it authenticates them. So we can block things like this. We can also block authentication transfer. If some of us, we know there's some tools that doesn't have ability to sign in because there's no GUI for it. So you have to do like what we call code authentication transfer to them. You can block stuff like this. So at the end of the day, your conditional access policy or your conditional access should be built based on all of these use cases. So risk-based conditional access policy is just looking at the risk level, but there are other signals of interest like your authentication location, your authentication method, your location, your device health, your access to data, your risk level, the IP address, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, I like because you cannot configure the product better than the owner of the product. So personally, this is some of the use cases that you can start from as your secure foundation. And then based on your use cases, you can start building multiple policies to cover it. So you have things like block legacy authentication, require multi-factor authentication, block signing from another location, do this, do that. And based on that, you can then, play around the policies and then build stuff. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
I'll read Boshola Itunike. If you have a question or you can answer. Alright, Boshola Itunike, is that a question or just your hands up? Or you're just saying hi to us? I'm trying to, I got like about 12 minutes more, and there's one other thing I wanted to also touch on, although we don't have a configuration for that. I think we've talked about the most important, but I think the protection, to be fair, we've looked at the risk assigning, the detection, the remediation, and those nice stuff. What else I want to look at? For the purpose of people on this call, I might not go into the graph conversation, but if you want me to go into it as well, I'm sure some of us are aware of what APIs are, and if you want to pull some logs into what your SIM solution and stuff like that, you can expose the information that we have in here in the so much information, isn't it? So let's say, for example, if you have other third-party log ingesting products, maybe your other SIM solution is a solution that you want to get all this information into a broader security event management solution like your SIM service and stuff, or your SOA service, you can then pick all this information through Microsoft Expose APIs, and then you want to then flood the log sources with those information so that you can have like proper enrichment and automated responses, that you can have that your SOC level approach where people are doing this, are doing that, and all those nice stuff. So you can get those through Microsoft APIs. There are a couple of exposed APIs that you can find from Microsoft documentation. documentation. Where is that? Let me find the API for us and just I'll drag that. Yeah. So there are a couple of where are we? Not that one. Yeah. So there are a couple of exposed. I mean, if you need to use Microsoft Graph to to expose specific information. So you want to log it into your third-party SIM and all those nice stuff. You can get all of this API information from it, the risk detection, the sign risk, and all those nice stuff, and make sense of it. In most cases, most businesses that I've worked with, they probably have what we call they use Sentinel as their major log source, and to be fair, it does the job. And I think there's no other cloud service, there's no other better cloud. I mean, at the moment, I think Sentinel is actually it's probably one of the best at the moment. I don't know what Gartner is saying on that, but we can have a look. So if you need to ingest the logs and whatnot, you can get it from me. The other bit of identity protection that I've not mentioned is the Microsoft security, the Microsoft.com is the Microsoft MDI, which is the Microsoft Defender for Identity. So all of this conversation that we have been looking at is in the cloud. We also have if you are in an hybrid environment where predominantly you have an on-premises user account and stuff like that, bulk of the threat that we've seen in recent time would come from an hybrid environment technically, and because of that, you want to ensure that you have visibility both on-prem and in the cloud. So based on that, Microsoft built a product called Microsoft Defender for Identity. So that allows you to then deploy sensors to your domain controllers and your Active Directory Entra Connect servers, so that also monitors login attempts on premises, and then a single radio button from the cloud can automatically, make a security response to a compromised identity, which automatically stop or disturb the attack queue chain. So with Defender for Identity, you have to use what we call a GMSC account, and you have to install the sensor. So sensor is like an adbit that monitors all the login experience, the login attempt, the activity on the user in the local environment, and then looking at the cloud environment. Based on that, it's going to be giving you a lot of information. So there's an installation guide on what are the prerequisites for building the MD, which is Microsoft Defender for Identity. So it's just the on-premises version of or I would say the on-premises infrastructure for identity protection in the cloud. So basically, if you're an hybrid environment, you want to deploy this to your ADFS servers, your AD Connect servers, your AD servers, and ensure what you're going to be getting off it is that you then have that 360 overview of your identity-centric related risk. On top of this, I believe we have an understanding of what Microsoft Entra identity protection does. I would have loved to show us how this would work in a real life scenario, but this will require time of configuration, because I have to then have a Windows server built. I have to then install an Active Directory rules and feature. I have to get another server to do my ID Connect, migrate users to the cloud, and then make some preparation in the server, make some changes to the permissions, create a GMSC account, write some PowerShell script and all of this nice stuff, and then create a service account and then start doing stuff. But the longest short of it is that within Microsoft Defender for Identity, which is like the on-premises version of the identity protection in the cloud, you can see that it says these dynamic dashboards offer a centralized view of a critical insight of real time about the identity threat detection and response by providing an intuitive interface and that showcase the important information to unauthorized access, account compromise and insider threat and optimal activity. A dashboard enables you to proactively monitor and manage potential identity-related risk. So for on-premises infrastructure that have got hybrid environments, here you are required to have this configured and installed and working perfectly. If you are fully cloud native, you have no business here. And on top of that, is there any question from any of the people that have gone on the call? I think you've got me for another 4 minutes. Happy to stay a bit longer. The folks that have won themselves some gift, you could just drop your I think you can respond to this message. I'm just gonna drop I on the chat and then you can respond. I in the WhatsApp group, you can respond to it, and I'll just maybe private. You can probably chat me or something, and I can just I can then make the payment available to you guys. Any question, guys? Hello, any question?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go for it.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for the class. I just wanted to ask, aside the alerts that we get to receive, the signing risky alerts we get to receive from the portal, can we configure configure an account that will receive alert whenever there is a signing risk? Maybe just send an email that a signing risk is detected to abc.com or an email address on the organization.
So absolutely, the good use case is to use Power Automate. So you can create what we call automation rule within Power Automate to send a Teams message, send an email if an alert has been triggered, and that is going to be a different conversation really. But you probably have like a template here that allows you to create. You can click from the Microsoft. I think you can have like a flow. Bear me 1 minute. I built a couple of flow that doesn't even work anymore. So let's look at it. There are some flows that you can leverage upon. Let's look for Entra, I think. So this can allow you. You can see import. Let's see. Is there a risk? Yeah, you can use some of these flows in here. So notify manager of insider risk alerts, but you can build it to a way that allows you to get message in Teams when the risk is flagged or when there is an incident is flagged. So I don't know if that answers the question though.
Yeah, sure. I see.
AGK, you have a question as well? You've got your hands up twice.
Yes, thanks. I just wanted to ask, this is towards what you were stating before, that you needed to set up a lot of things. It's directed towards you and also Emmanuel Oyimafu, like the coordinators and organizers. Is there a way, right? Rather than you doing all those things particularly yourself, we can just create one large project that people can actually then start doing these things or come together like a group like that will typically work in an organization and do all these steps so that it can be like a holistic project we can also use to showcase on CVs and stuff.
So I usually used to do this. To be fair, I think I've got like a package. I can speak to Emmanuel offline. I have a project that I give out, like a bulk of activity that I expect you to do. Once you complete that thing, you can you can you can and I try to update as much as possible. I've just been quite lazy in recent time. So yes, it's gonna take some effort. But one of the fundamentals for this is that it is resource intensive. So you have to have and a Microsoft tenancy. Um because of the number of people in the call, it might be very difficult to help people with tenants and whatnot. But yes, there is a matter. So it maybe people can, if you want to be personal investment, if you say maybe get a Microsoft license for a month, maybe 20 people come together, form a project team, developer, tester, whatever. We give you like the blueprint and then you go and implement these things yourself. Like I think I have I have a lot of materials to support on that. Okay, so okay, if you've got that, I can give you all you need is just an M365 E5 license so that you can do other things apart from Entra. So I can give you a blueprint that I worked on, sorry, blueprint that I got from the National Security for Australia. That's the blueprint and it contains all configuration steps and what you need to do in terms of best practice. I would say for your hands-on is good, but you need to understand why you're configuring stuff. And that's why if you look at the approach that I take in teaching, it's usually more like real life scenario. So I haven't really been actively just because of time. I'm really sorry about that. But for things like this, I can have several personal consultation with maybe Emmanuel or whoever it is to then provide those set of materials that can help you guys to build stuff and get you to the level you want to get to. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much. Just
Please, that
it
would
helps
really make
because
sense.
yeah, it just helps because yes, even though like we're 40 plus here, some of us have various levels of experiences and skill sets, right? So in a way where we can all just merge together and be a cohesive unit and meet somewhere in the middle, right? In terms of a project, it's a help because for me personally, I'm looking for something more complex because I think I've run through most of the labs and projects, right? So I think I'm looking for something way more complex to do that infuses real life experience, infuses a lot of other advanced situations, topics, configuration, scripting, and just forms it into a holistic project that I can put somewhere. Like if that makes sense.
Actually, I do have let's have a look. I do have I do have a project I can share, which I know some people have done. Is a blueprint. Just bear me 1 minute. Let's have a look. I do have bookmarks, but then I can't find it for you. Yeah, good. Let's look at labs and let's look at architectural design, maybe. No, architectural design. Everything Microsoft, maybe. Not that one. Report and automation, number that one. Sentinel labs. I'm looking for something that talks about national security for something. Find it for you. It might be I'm gonna look for it and I'm just gonna share. If you can please remind me and please hold me accountable for it if I don't respond because sometimes I get carried away easily. So I can find that blueprint. It's not my product, but it's something that has helped me over time to look at best practice when it comes to configuration, look at solution design. As an architect, you have to be able to design based on best practice, based on organization need and stuff like that. So I'll look for it and send it. Any other question, folks?
Sorry, I just want to add to what AGP said. I think it's a very, very good suggestion because I feel like a lot of people have not started practicing what we've been taught in class, and the project will help. Especially also when we use a project management tool like probably Jira or Monday or whatever, like everybody has a task and people interested anyway in the project, they will be involved. So probably, for example, some persons will undo conditional access and check out the functionality and also the progress of that, and also the one we taught today. So as in progressively for what we've done so far, so I think it's a very, very good suggestion, and I'm very interested as well. So I think we should do it. Like I think,
Yeah.
and anybody that is interested, as in, because this particular cohort or this particular stuff is ending in January. So if we can start after the break, probably we can do it for a week or two, depending on how fast we can. And we have it like, okay, we're done with this particular one, and everybody has it and can add it on LinkedIn or keep it or whatever, however they want to do it.
Yes,
So I think it's a very good one.
I found it. So this is the blueprint I was looking for. This is the blueprint I'm looking for. I'll put it in the chat. If I found this on, I found it's basically Australian government blueprint. It's available. It's an open material, but this is basically, if you look at the highlight of what it is, it's just basically saying how best to configure. If you look at Australian signal directory blueprints for secure cloud blueprints and online to support design, configuration, and deployment of collaborative and secure cloud and hybrid workspace with current focus on M365. If you are able to implement, so maybe you guys digest this information from a project standpoint and then understand the solution pillars and go through the configuration of each component, that would then allow you, delve into multiple. So they have, in fact, it's so good that they have the step-by-step configuration of what's expected, what's expected, what you need to do, setting up your break glass account, the thought process and all this nice stuff. So this might be a good starting point for you. Like I said, I have a lot of them I've worked on, like I've used in the past to support my project or work, because I reference articles and stuff. You could also might want to look at, maybe for now, focus on this one. Is a blueprint. It's like a Bible that allows you that you are supposed to follow to build best practice, and they have reviews every now and then. So it's just a configuration and stuff. So maybe you want to split this into a group of 5, a group of 6, a group of 10. Again, get a license. One tenant is enough for you guys if you don't. And then you guys can create multiple test users. And then some people are able to, one tenant is enough. One license is enough. You can have multiple users with the license, but with admin roles to configure things. And once they configure it, you can test it with your test user as a single instance. And then hold yourself accountable. Any other question, folks? Any other question? Wasiu Alabi's got his hands up.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hello, good evening, sir.
Yes, go for it.
Yeah, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. I just want to speak on what the last user said, the last caller said concerning the project. So maybe we should just appeal to the organizer of this program. Maybe after January, when we are done with the whole class, if they can extend it, then that one will now be on project base, where we can be shared in groups. That's my own suggestion.
Like I said, this has to do with. It has to be with the organizers to decide. They would then decide if there's a need for this or there's a need for that. If that makes sense. But it's okay to also focus on the primary, which is disseminating this information to you guys, and then providing most information as much as possible. It might be, I mean, these are good suggestions, if that makes sense. These are founder suggestions. It shows that people are interested in stuff. So if there's an extension of the score to say, no, well, if you want to get into labs and stuff, these are additional materials. And perhaps you don't necessarily have to wait for the organizers to do this, if that makes sense. You yourself can organize yourself, because at the end of the day, you know what you're looking for. So organize yourself, stay focused, 6 months project, let's implement this in a test environment, hold yourself accountable, and then you carry on from there. I'm just saying, but if the organizers are kind enough to to invest their time, effort, and resources to push this forward as well, that's equally fine as well. But like I said, I'm open. When I say I'm open, that doesn't mean that I'm open to every like I'm available to help, and it has to be reasonable. So you can give me a shout whenever you need some help. I can share with you materials like this, I can point you to directions, and I can advise where necessary. So, and that's it really.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other question? I should be wrapping. I'm just gonna give 2 more minutes before I disappear. For the folks that won themselves some gift, I've just dropped a message in the chat. I think I've only got a message from, what's her name? Victoria. I think the next person is AGK and Emmanuel, I believe. If you could just send me a private message, that would be very helpful. And then in that, I don't think there's any other question. If you have any other question, you can drop it in the chat. I'll respond to it as quickly as possible. Then if not, until I meet you guys again, I'm probably going to be taking you on in January, I think, on a different kind of topic. But on that note, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure explaining these technical jargons to us in the better way I can, and hopefully, I hope we learned 1 or 2 things from this. Okay, thank you. Have a nice weekend, and then look after yourself and stay safe. Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
don't forget to drop a private message if that's okay. Unless you don't want the gift anyways. All right, bye. Have a nice Christmas. Bye.